George Soros has been a visionary for a long time, and when Eastern Europe was going through a transformation period, he was way ahead of the curve, creating the open society and supporting freedom of ideas in Eastern Europe, and that's one of his huge positive legacies. He changed the nature of thinking in Eastern Europe. I believe with INET, he's going to do, I hope, the same with economics. Priming it with supporting great new thinking, bringing people together that wouldn't have otherwise have come together, giving them a sense of identity, collective identity, giving them some institutional support, because like it was the case with the intellectuals in Eastern Europe, this is a community that feels rather dispirited. It's a community that feels that although it had better insights than the orthodoxy, it's not able to access the corridors of power, it's not able to access even sometimes leading positions within university because it's slightly outside the system or challenging the system.
George Soros has long been not just a critic of established economics, but a man who has brought genuinely new ideas into economic debate, especially his concept of reflexivity, which focuses on the inherent unpredictability of the future and the very important feedback effect that has on current behavior. And that was certainly one of the main elements, it seemed to me, missing from the economic understanding of the crisis. So it occurred to me to start to say to George, you've been trying to reform the economics profession for the last 10, 15, 20 years. You've been a voice crying in the wilderness, but this is an opportunity when your voice is actually going to be heard.
George Soros is a person who never rests. He's a person who's always looking to use his time on earth and his resources and his mind to create what he believes is constructive change. He's very, very passionate, whether it comes to the changes in Eastern Europe in the late 90s, environmental and climate change, addressing the use of torture by the previous administration, or in this case, challenging economic theory to evolve. In the case of economic theory, George also leads by example. Over many years, having been trained as an economist and philosopher, and a student of Karl Popper, he's developed his own theory of reflexivity, and he's out there. He just did 5 lectures in Budapest. He's going around to major American universities and challenging the tenured academics to look at his view and to critique him. One of the things that's extraordinary about George is he's a very wealthy, famous, and powerful man, but he likes to subject himself to scrutiny and criticism. He likes that engagement and that learning. I find that very refreshing. He tends to renew himself and continue to evolve when many other people would have throttled back and gone to rest. George Soros never rests.
Rob Johnson and I were spending some time with George Soros at his home in Southampton, and began talking to him about this idea of how do you try to move the economics profession. It was a question that George had been worried about for a long time, because he had put forward some very interesting ideas on reflexivity, and the economics profession had resisted them. He had put forward ideas on policy, reforming the reserve system, and it was very hard to move the economics profession. If you didn't express things in the exact vocabulary that they liked, they weren't interested. If you didn't express it in the exact language, which was a mathematical language, they weren't interested. And so there was an understanding that this was not just an academic exercise. This is one of intense social importance. George had been very involved in, you might say, trying to change societies. His Open Society played a critical role in the transition from communism to a market economy in a number of countries. This was I think hoped was an idea that would appeal to him, given his commitment in a whole variety of other areas. And so he decided then to have a broader meeting in Bedford and brought together a large number of economists, distinguished economists who in one way or another had been criticizing the standard paradigm, were recognized as intellectual leaders by the mainstream. But while they had made major contributions within the mainstream, had also recognized the limitations of the mainstream.
Fascinating individual. At this meeting in Bedford, he listened, sat on the outskirts, and very occasionally would speak, but mostly he was listening. When he did speak, what fascinated me about him is the kind of mental structure of a trader and how it's the same and different from the mental structure of a library guy like myself. That there are certain things that he believes are true that are quite unshakable, but they are rather abstract and open. And then there's a lot of flexibility about bringing in, you can't be committed to a specific theory, because if you bet on that, you could lose all your money. So the mentality of the trader is a very intellectual mentality in a certain way, open-minded, always looking for how could I be wrong? You know, I want to know. I'm not trying to protect myself by pushing away people who are arguing that I'm wrong. I want to hear them tell me how I'm wrong, because they could save me money. Okay, I really think that academics could benefit from a little bit of that. Okay, that I really want to hear what my critics say. I really want to hear how they think that I am completely off base, because maybe I am. Maybe I am, and I don't want to be off base. I want to be making intellectual progress, and the only way you can do that is if you open yourself up to a conversation with people who don't agree with you.